All right, so welcome back. In this video, we're going to cover two different essential aspects to developing Ethereum smart contracts. The first will be conditionals, and the second one will be loops. All right, and you need to know both of these things in order to, effectively become a blockchain developer. So I'm going to show you how to do both of those in this video. We'll start off with conditionals. All right, so what is a conditional? Well, basically, it's a way to determine that something happens in a programming language based on whether a condition is met. That's not a very good explanation, so I'll just demonstrate what I mean by that. Basically, like, if something happens, then do something, right? And if it doesn't happen, then do something else. All right, this is not really code. This is just sort of a pseudo code explanation of what I mean, right? So this is commonly referred to as like control flow in programming or computer science, or control structures. So I'll just show you how this works in action. Let's go ahead and create a function that determines whether a number is even or not. All right, we'll just create a new function like this. We'll say function is even number. All right. And we'll say this is public, say view returns uint. All right. And inside of here, we'll just determine whether the number is even, like the function says, and we'll return a Boolean true or false. So let's add the number to the function like this. We'll say uint number. And what we'll do is take this number and determine whether it's even. So how do we do that? Well, essentially, we divide the number by 2 and see if there's a remainder. So what do I mean by that? So, for example, 4 divided by 2 will equal 2. All right. 5 divided by 2 will equal, let's see here, 2.5, or 2 remainder 1. So if you think about, like, elementary school mathematics, 2 remainder 1, and so on and so forth. Basically, this will not equal an even number. It will be it'll be a fraction or odd or something like that. All right. So basically, like, do like this. So say if number, and then we'll say modulo 2 equals 0, then we know that it's even. And if else, return false. Okay. So what is this? Well, this is called a modulo operator. This is the percent sign. Basically, this determines whether there is a remainder. So like I showed you a minute ago, like 5 divided by 2 equals 2 remainder 1. So this modulo will basically represent the remainder here, 1. So, 5 modulo 2, the modulo will be 1. All right. But for even numbers, the modulo or the remainder will always be 0. So let's say like 4 divided by 2 equals 2 are 0, or 2 modulo 0, all right? So that pattern persists across all numbers, right? So basically, this is how we determine whether the number is even or not. This is the condition, all right? So if this condition is met, then we want to do something. In this case, we just want to return true, all right? And if it's false, or if it's not met, then we just want to return false, okay? It's a really simple example that we'll start off with. So let's go ahead and compile that. Compile it. So we got some problems here. So this is saying bool is not, okay. So basically this should be bool here. Sorry, guys. All right. So I specified the wrong return value. This should always return a Boolean. Sorry if you caught that earlier. All right, there we go. So now let's compile it and deploy. And let's take a look here. So is even number. We'll say is 1 an even number? Nope. Is 2? Yes. All right. Is 3? No. And is 4? True. Okay. Awesome. So this function works. Now we can use this function To create an even more complex workflow like this, we'll create a array inside of here with numbers, and we'll check if the numbers inside of the array are even or not. All right. So I'll say int, or say uint, say public numbers, and I'm just going to set this equal to numbers 1 through 10. All right, like this. Boom. So now let's just go ahead and compile this and deploy it and see like numbers. We can say the first one, is 1, second one is 2, etc., etc. All right. So now what we can do is create a function that will actually iterate through this entire array and then count all of the even numbers. All right. So what we're going to do inside this function is create another conditional like this. So a control structure, conditional. And then we're also going to do a loop. All right, which is what I mentioned earlier at the beginning of the video as well. So we need both of these things inside this new function in order to get the count of even numbers inside this array. All right. So a function, let's say count even numbers. You can call it even numbers count if you want to, but that's just what we'll do for now. Public view returns uint. Okay. And so what we want to do is create a count variable. Say uint count equals 0. All right. And then now what we want to do is loop through this entire array to count all the even numbers. So here's the first introduction to a loop. So what we're going to do is a for loop. Okay. You might have seen this inside of another programming language. Maybe you have a JavaScript background. Maybe you are brand new to programming. That's okay too. So I'll explain what this is. So what this loop does is it essentially executes code inside of here, runs code, and it keeps doing it until the condition is met inside of here. So a for loop kind of is like a conditional. And that's actually really a while loop. So really a for loop, it does it for, it iterates over this entire thing, right? So not a very good explanation, but I think you'll get what I mean when you see it in action. Okay, so just bear with me and we'll continue forward. So what I want to do inside of here, this is a very common pattern. You might have seen it in JavaScript. I'm going to say uint I equals 0, and then I less than number, or yeah, let's do numbers dot length, and we'll say plus plus. Say, or sorry, length I plus plus. Okay. So what it's going to do is it's going to count through each number in this array. So we'll start at 0. This is going to, I is going to stand for index here. And then for each number in the entire length, all right, as long as I is less than the number's length, do this. And then whenever this is done, do this. All right. So this, let me break that down again. This is the initial value for the variable that's sort of like the counter for the condition, and then this is what they basically do this until this is, while this is not satisfied, and then after each time in the loop do this. Okay, so I'll just show you what I mean by that. Inside of here we'll say if number is even number. All right, we can use our function right here and then pass in I. Actually, let's do this. Let's say numbers I. All right. And then we'll say count plus plus. All right. Followed by this, and then we'll return count. So what does this do? Well, it loops through all these, and then it checks to see if the number inside of here is an even number. And if it is, then it increments the count. And if not, it does nothing, and it moves on to the next item in the array. All right. So let's just watch that in action. We'll go here, compile. All right, we got an issue here. Let's see here. Function count even numbers, public view. Oh, that's the syntax there. Returns, my fault. All right. And then compile and deploy. Kill this one. So we'll say, count even numbers. And there we go. It's 5. Perfect. So it works. As you can see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 even numbers in this array. So we could change this, and this would also return a different count based on how many even numbers are in there. So that's how you use a for loop inside of Solidity. And this has many applications, which you can see if you start developing smart contracts. But here's the basics on how to do it. And here it is in tandem with conditional like this, right? These control structures. So the last thing I want to do is show you how to do conditionals with in a different setting. So let's just say address public owner. All right. And then what we're going to do is store the ownership of this smart contract whenever it's deployed. So basically, an Ethereum account is going to put this smart contract on the blockchain. And what we can do is determine whether the owner is the person who deployed it or not. So do that like this, a constructor, public. Don't forget the constructor is the function that gets run whenever the smart contract's deployed to the blockchain. So you can check that out. I explained that more in the previous videos, but that's it for now. Say owner equals msg.sender. Okay, and then we can have a function like this that just checks whether the owner is the smart contract owner. So function is owner. All right, we'll say public view returns bool. Okay, and inside of here, we'll say, if msg.sender equals owner, return true, and then else, return false. All right, so that's what's going to check whether this person is the owner of the contract or not, okay? So we'll see that in action, but really quickly, I want to refactor this to show you how you can actually get rid of a conditional when you don't need it, all right? So we see this really simple conditional pattern here, if condition, return true, else return false. That's really okay when you're just trying to understand how conditionals work in the first place, but you don't have to write all that code, all right? So for this basic function, you can do this. You can say return msg.sender equals owner. All right. And that's because essentially this condition right here is already going to return true or false. So if the function returns true or false, you don't need to specify the return value of true or false inside the conditional. Okay. All right. So let's just compile this. And we'll deploy it. We'll clear the old one here. So count even numbers, does it still work? Yes. All right. So let's say is owner. True. All right. If I change the address to a different one, say is owner and false. All right. So that's an introduction to conditionals and loops inside of Solidity. So these are both really essential aspects to developing Ethereum smart contracts. So you really want to make sure you understand these, all right? So I'll put a link to the code example down in the video description below. You can check that out if you want to. If you had trouble, maybe you got stuck, you can reference the completed examples, all right? So if you like this video, again, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Click the like button down below. And if you want to take that next step to mastering blockchain and you want the step-by-step plan on how to become a real-world blockchain developer, that I can show you how to do exactly that. Okay, just head on over to dappuniversity.com/bootcamp to get started. All right, until next time, thanks for watching Dapp University.